Hi everyone, welcome to another live Play and Explain episode. At the moment, we've got a couple of tables of 2K, table of 1K, and a table of 500 running. Hopefully, the tables bring us some good fortune today. Got a few reasonably recreational spots, particularly on this 1K table here. I think both players to my bottom right, to my right, are both recreationals. Potentially also the new player that's just joined with 80 big blinds. Against the recreationals, we can small bet or check here. I think both lines are pretty close. I don't perceive our fold equity to be amazing against the two individuals, which probably leans me to prefer checking. We can also, when we bet small, we do get some fold equity. We build the pot slightly larger for when we hit a jack or a queen on the turn, and then are going to be able to, value bet two more streets against these individuals. And then we face, when we've bet small, we've faced leads less often on the turn and get to see a free river as well more often. As played, we'll just fold. Yeah, I think the flop decision is close. We know that player two is quite volatile. Yeah, from what we've seen earlier. Yeah, and we've got this guy posting as well. So yeah, third recreational at the table is pretty good. The 2K tables we've got, a short stack here and a short stack here, also a short stack up top as well. But from what I've seen, they're all playing reasonably tight, so they're not exactly the recreationals that are just handing out free EV, or at least not a huge amount of it. Just going to fold the queen three suited versus the three big blind open. Would defend versus smaller size. And it's closer with it being a recreational as to whether we want to defend, but yeah, it's pretty borderline. We've got this guy posting as well. A interesting table. We might actually, given this action that's going at 1K, I think I will look to maybe leave one of these 2K tables, jump into a table at 1K. Just because we know there's four recreationals playing in the 1K pool at the moment. So if they're across multiple tables, we potentially can find another good table there. Mind you, we just saw. So this player here went two big blinds under the gun, raised to 6.5, and he defends 10-7 suited. So he is absolutely a recreational. Yeah, gonna throw bet the ace jack. Yeah, so we saw defends 10-7 suited, low jack versus high jack 3-bet. Yeah, so pretty good spot. And then it's whether this guy's recreational, but he's only got 19 big blinds. We do have a short stack that just joined. Open up the 9-7 suited, open up the ace king. Yeah, I think I might just sit out of this table and try and find the same spots at the 1K table. And actually sit out of the 500 table as well. Also look to move to 1K. Yep, throw out the aces. Few standards. Ace king on queen 9-2. Yeah, we can kind of play any strategy here. I think small bets are going to go okay, but generally favoring large bets. And ace king, Yeah, I can probably large bet. I think I'm just going to prefer checking it more often than not, though. Checking and then looking to hero down some turns and rivers. Okay, face B75. Yeah, I don't think we can have a fold here. Also, given that we have like when villain has Queen 10, we have 6 outs of redraw against better. Jack of spades on the river. Um, Not really inclined to hero versus versus probably both the sizing structure and then also noting that villain's draws on the turn, like his highest equity draws are going to revolve around like King Jack, Jack 10, Jack 8, like those kind of hands, which all hit a pair. Like, granted, I don't expect Jack 8 to, once it's hit a Jack on the river, to be betting this size. So, like, I think we can discount, him from having Jack 8. Um, but yeah, he kind of has to have been betting random air on the turn, which, yeah, I don't perceive this type of player will be doing a lot of. So I will just fold. Against some opponents who are just going to be like way too air heavy on the turn there, it can absolutely be right to hero twice there. I just don't think that that player was the candidate. All right, tables are just moving around. Yeah, so we've opened up another 1K table and have got, yeah, another recreational flatting the small blind by the looks of it. I mean, again, it's like flatting the small blind is not a mistake in theory, particularly at these stakes, but in practice, you're not going to see many regs doing it at a super high frequency. So, um, as soon as as soon as you see it happening, the chances that they are recreational like skyrocket relative to them being a reg. And given we're in an anonymous pool, we do just want to like operate on pretty quick assumptions around who's a recreational and who's not, just so that we can be, maximizing win rate right from the get go. And sometimes we'll make a mistake and we'll have to reevaluate and say that this guy, oh, he's not actually a recreational, but more often than not, we're going to be right. Queen 10 versus the three big blinds, I think, is typically going to be relatively close, but against a recreational, it's a clear defend. See, ace 9-5, three spades. This is close between call and raise when we face like a third pot here. Um, I think it's close because a recreational here can just be betting range, and when we raise immediately, it's going to perform quite well. I don't really want to play raise, and then when we actually get there, we're kind of stuck with like quite a middling spade. I also don't perceive that villain is going to fold many pairs here when we do raise. So whereas like some like tighter regs are going to like already start folding out, 9x or ace x when we raise immediately here. So I think I'm just going to proceed with call. Second turn, and Jack 9-5. Yeah, I think we can check this. It's we can again adopt multiple strategies. Can adopt multiple strategies. Like nothing's going to be a mistake there. Gonna go for a big bet on the 10-9-5. A quick call and a 4 turn. We river the spade here, which is pretty good. We should have the best hand almost always when he checks, I think. I think we just go like B33. I think it's hard to get paid much more. Like maybe we could argue B50. Maybe we can go B50. Okay, this went check, check, check. We can definitely call or raise here. I think I prefer call turn and then we can raise river potentially. And then the ace-7 here, I think we can double barrel. Like, I think with the overcard, um, and then we can, the club blocker and straight blocker in the future is potentially relevant. Here, like, it's, do we triple barrel? I'm a little bit concerned with his timing. Yeah, and then I think we should, yeah, absolutely block this on the river. We kind of don't get here with much worse here. So even though we have ace high and we have a slither of showdown value, it's really hard for us to have a worse hand. I think we just go pot. Yeah, so I'm tempted to bluff, but then, and I think we will, because I think we will start to get some 10x and 9x to fold. So I will bluff. I'm a little bit concerned by his like frequency, the timing frequency with which he called turn, that we're just going to get stationed. Yeah, I mean, a 10 is probably supposed to defend there some of the time. That's like, it's a spot where, I don't know, if we know that he's just going to snap call that hand, I probably don't want to pull the trigger. And you could argue that we know that from his turn timing. But also sometimes people will play, a fast turn call to then like, give the impression that they're strong and then they'll fold river. So, I think it goes a little bit both ways, that read. So hence why I went for it on the river. It's hard in theory to defend BVB versus a triple barrel, so leaning on the more aggressive side than not is probably good against most players. Maybe not against that player. I'm just going to tag him as a likely station. I mean, like, I don't think the call down is terrible from his perspective, and I think it, if I'm over bluffing, which presumably in theory I am, like when I, am not randomizing that and just decide to triple barrel, like I'm probably arriving on the river with over bluffs, like it becomes quite a good call down. But it's a question of I've put likely station there because as to whether that's actually going through his mind or he's just clicking call because he's got a 10. Like obviously the difference in thought process there kind of determines whether we're up against a strong reg or up against a weak fish, right? Like both the strong reg and the weak fish can arrive at the same decisions, but the thought process to get there will determine then like what decisions we make on the future against them. And clearly up against the weak fish, given the limp strategy that he's playing. The limp call, no less. The 15 big blinds. Yeah, definitely don't like the triple barrel that I ran into that player. Am I sitting out here? I think so. I think we're looking to find the 1K table. Let me just see if we saw. I missed the action after he called the 15 big blinds. Ideally we want to see a showdown, right? Because we want to just see if he's like limp calling 15 big blinds with like 10-8 suited. Because that's clearly going to inform our ISO strategy and whatnot. Sorry, my computer is getting a little bit laggy with OBS running in the background as well, so causing me a little bit of grief as I'm just trying to move that across to the side. The Jack 4, I am very inclined not to do any folding against a recreational player. So we're going to try a limp and see what his reaction is. We will just fold if we get ISO'd to any size. And we're going to take that as evidence as well of what we can actually do with some of our stronger holdings when we get into the small blind against that player as well. I'm going to assume that when he like snap goes to 3 big blinds, that he's going to be doing that with most of range versing a limp. And so actually when we get dealt a strong hand there, we may actually look to limp re-raise. And then also just assume that like once he's made it 3 big blinds, there's like a bit of an element of, fighting for the pot that comes in from a recreational. And that he's not going to be inclined to make it three big blinds, and then fold like any of his range, right? So we might actually get to a spot where we limp, he ISOs like 5-7 off, and then we re-raise, and then he defends 5-7 off, right? I think that's like a non-zero possibility against a big recreational that we can get to here. The ace-10 here with top pair and decent redraw. I think I prefer betting this hand just because when we then river the straight, we can be all in and sometimes get heroed against a recreational. We also just get value out of Jack 10, Queen Jack, 9-10, 8-10, those type of hands right now. So I think I prefer bet. This is obviously like a bit of a disaster when we like face jam here, but we shouldn't face that at too high a frequency. Like it will happen sometimes, and it'll be a little bit sad. And what we do against it, what we do against it is, it's very grim. Like clearly we aren't betting this size if we expect to face jam a lot of the time because it basically makes our hand very much zero EV between like call and fold here. I think it's a question of like how often does a fish merge? Like, does a fish ever play this line with Jack 10? Oh, and this is first hand. I think I'm gonna call versus first hand. I think this is very close. I think there's just a bit too much of a spew factor here, and sometimes we see Jack 10. Yeah, I mean that's the most common holding that we see, right? Like a two pair holding, but clearly we have against two pair we actually have like decent redraw against that. I think there is a leaning towards call when it's his first hand, and we just like know that there's a bunch of recreationals dancing in the pool, and like, yep, we'll absolutely see, Jack 9 from that. But when we can see just like some other random spew, right? Like if we can see just like ace 5 offsuit or something, then like that's leaning us more and more towards call. And we know he's not a reg, right? And we have, let me just look at like what was our equity there? It's like going to be 30% or something. Yeah, we have 36% equity against that hand, so we are pretty much getting the right price against that holding, like very close. And so then when you add the spew factor in, um, yeah, it's probably a call. I'm not thrilled about it. And again, the like more we expect to face jam there, then I think I just prefer check on the turn. Hold the 9-8 off versus the 3-bet. So presumably recreational there with the 65 big blind stack. I'm going to presume a recreational here just with the flat of the small blinds. But going to give him the light blue tag if my HUD will allow me to. Just because it's kind of the recreational on probation, right? Like he may not actually be, but I think it's more likely than not. Also got this guy opening three big blinds from the hijack, which is non-standard. I think against a recreational, I prefer just three betting this hand. In theory, it's mainly just going to be a call. But we are just going to garner initial fold equity, and then also like when we play post flop, we get to play post flop in a slightly inflated pot against a recreational, which is just going to be a good thing for us. What about the nines? Yeah, I presume this guy's also going to be a recreational of some caliber, right? I think that is definitely like one of the important things about playing like your best game is like focusing at the table and tagging players, making sure you're understanding of where the weak spots at the table are, right? Like if we're just missing that this guy's opening to three big blinds a couple of times, and then we end up playing a big pot against them, and we've missed that sort of information, then like we're just working with we're working with less information when we get into the big pot. Whereas now, if we see a certain line and we know there's a greater chance that he's a recreational, it's kind of like the ace 10 versus jack 9 there. It's like the more information we have towards leaning that he's a recreational, the more I want to call, and the more leaning that he's a reg, the more I want to fold. Like that's kind of the leaning there. Gonna open up the aces and the queen 10. We do just take it down with the aces, which is always disappointing. Or nines in against sixes from a short stack. Kind of whatever when you're playing short, but so similar spot to when we had the pocket fives on the previous spot and we decided to three bet. I'm just gonna flat here, facing the slightly larger open size, so three big blinds versus 2.5. I generally think this range is going to be slightly stronger than a 2.5 big blind open range. So slightly less inclined. And then our only point of data that this guy's a fish is his open size, whereas we've also seen this guy flatting from the small blind. So if we had to like rank our recreationals, right, we've got this guy slightly more likely to be a reg, and so I'm more inclined to just play like a GTO standard sort of strategy. We faced the big bet already, which yeah makes this hand reasonably close to indifferent already. I think it's pretty close. I think we'll call. But pretty close already. If we wanted to fold, like we're going to be doing a lot of just folding on the turn. I think there's like enough. Like we sometimes just get the give up line and just get to go check check and get a safe river and it goes check check and we win. And then also the like improved equity of like when we hit a five on turn, like we have a full house. Like yes, we lose to Jack 10 and are going to get cooled and lose a stack there, but I think just like the strength of our outs is probably enough to call, but it is very close. I think as played, we just play check. Um, yeah, I don't want to do anything other than check here. We do get the safe river. I think we always have the best hand now. Like sometimes we're running into a recreational who like yes, like pocket sevens, pocket sixes as well, we lose to, and like sometimes he's gonna have like 7-8. I kind of wanna I think I do want to reopen here. Like I don't think we're ever getting trapped strong. And I want to induce something from a recreational. So I'm gonna like bet 10%. And this way, like we get called by sixes and sevens and we lose 10% pod and it's whatever. But if we face raise here, which we do, like I think we just call. Like I think this is just I mean, it's annoying when he raises a it's annoying when he raises the jack here. But I don't expect a recreational to do that enough. Okay, it's just trap trips, which is yeah, I don't expect people to do at anywhere near enough of a frequency. Slash, I don't think it's great to do that in population. But anyway, run into trap trips. That's fine. Okay, with the 6x here trips, when we open, we are going to reopen quite polar. let's go B175. And I think the advantage is that we've got this massive recreational in the small blinds. Like when he has any pair here, I don't expect him to fold. Like he's not going to have a pair very often, so we are just going to get like a lot of folds. But when he has just like Jack 8 or something, he's always going to call, and then we just get to like maybe not be all in, but maybe be all in on the river, and just win a huge pot. Yeah, reopening the pocket fives is obviously much worse when we when we are running into trips there at a non-zero frequency. Um, but I made the assumption that we weren't going to be running into trips very often there, and whether that assumption is right or wrong, like I think it's normally right. Clearly, it wasn't right in that individual scenario. But I think against most of the population and against most recreationals, it's going to hold up pretty well. Like I just expect ace 10 there to just go three straights. Yeah, and then once we face the raise, like we've made the B10% line to then call off. So like that was our plan, and but yeah, I think we were trying to induce the raise and we got what we asked for. It just so happened that he had trips. There's also like we do get some value out of like ace high sometimes there for the B10 line as well. Like we either get ace high to hero call or like to turn itself into a bluff, right? Just gonna fold the king queen versus the cold four bet. But yeah, running into it a bit at the start of the session, but that's all right. Sometimes that's gonna happen. More like we're just making certain judgment calls and they haven't quite been panning out in our direction. I mean, as we established, the like ace 10 versus jack 9 spot, it's very close, and I think actually I mean I have to go back with exactly what the price was getting, but I think if you flip the cards over and we saw he had jack 9, I think it's a call. It was very close to it anyway. Which then like probably means it's just a call off, if given that Jack 9 is kind of what we expect him to have. Like sometimes I guess he has a straight or a set and we're in much worse shape, but going to be relatively infrequent. He doesn't have sets very often. And we block the straights. Anyway, we shouldn't get caught up on old hands. So the pocket sixes, yeah, we'll just call. I was going to say we'll ISO if the small blind comes along, but as played, we'll just call. And largely just going to check fold this flop. Well, not largely. We're going to pure fold it versus any size bets, and then not going to turn this hand into a bluff pretty much on any run out. Particularly not an ace. Yep. Okay. And we river trips, and I think this is a spot where we have to do the betting ourselves, and it's mandatory. Um, he snap checked the turn. Like his reopen frequency as a bluff is going to be very low, like very low. And I don't think betting small makes sense. Like we're not going to get raised at a high enough frequency. He's generally just going to have some sort of marginal value, whether that's so it's interesting. Like when he has ace five that he's just checked twice, like I think we always get called here. So I think we should go bigger. Like I think if people have checked an ace on the turn, they're not folding. They're not checking an ace to then fold river. So I think we get to go quite big. And then when they have like 8x or 10x, they may still just choose to hero. So we are going to go quite big and just get a fold. But yeah, I think that line, like we have to go big, and then it's just how big do we go? And I think anywhere Like I think you could justifiably argue anywhere above B75 is going to be fine. Like obviously I went on the really big size, which yeah again you can maybe argue is too big. That's definitely like often I'm quite greedy in these spots, and yeah, I mean it's going to mean you just get called way less often, but when you do get called, you win quite a big pot. Spot's close. This spot's close, but I think it's just a fold. And the reason being is that if this was a recreational, I am much more inclined to like four bet slash get this in this configuration. But I'm actually quite concerned that this is just a reg who's trapping like enough of the time. And so actually sometimes like we're ahead of these two ranges, but this guy just has aces and we're just crushed when we get the money in, which means I will fold here. But if this is a recreational and this guy's ISOing quite wide, and then this guy's like raising quite wide, like I think nines is then on the verge of being good enough to get in. Just because there's so much dead money when we get folds, and then like a bunch of the time, then we just run the cards against Ace King. Um, but yeah, when we've got this guy who's like then going back to an opening size and he's playing very tight, like yeah, there's going to be some weak limps in there, but then there's also going to be like there's plenty of people in the pool who do just play limp traps, which you see from just like the tight regs essentially. Um, which yeah, like obviously if we like four bet or jam, like we're probably playing jams there as with our pocket nines as the strategy. So if we're committing our full stack and then sometimes just running into aces from under the gun, it's kind of a disaster. Not to mention that like cutoff and button are just, or was it button and small blind are just allowed to have a good hand, right? Like they can just also have aces. I was going to say sitting out of the table on the bottom left, we have just had like a new player at 85 bigs just join the table, so presumed recreational, who then just leaves. So I think we'll look to sit out of this table. We'll open up the fours, a marginal open at best, but into a couple of recreationals. I think is worth doing. And the 6-8 suited is close as well. Like we can choose to open this. I'm gonna fold against like looks like we're just opening into a bunch of regs. And we'll sit out of this table as well. We just lost the recreational spot. Opening the fours here because we're opening into like a recreational on the button and a recreational in the big blind, right? Like that's the plan. So we want to play a bit wider. Queen 6-2, we can play like ace nine's kind of just like right in the middle here. So just gonna largely check this hand. Okay, we see another check. We have the best hand like most of the time here. And I think standard is just to pure check this back. There's like a non-zero merit of betting really small, and we can get called by some worse ace highs. We can get called by some other draws and some other stuff that doesn't believe us, but I think I just prefer check. I don't think it's absurd to go one big blind here, but we'll just go for check. Ace king here, so we will typically be going for jam when we have ace king off. I think ace king suited, we should just go for four bet. And just a very easy call here. It's close to a raise, but I think just call. I think against a like looks like a very very tight reg, Queen X is going to be in this sizing structure more often than if we're against someone more splashy. Yeah, I mean yeah, he's going for value of pocket fives, which I think makes total sense. Okay, flop the nuts. I think just prefer going quite small here. We can also argue for check. I think check and small bet are both totally valid here. We get the check back. I'm not sure in practice whether double check is a thing that we want to do here. I'm just going to go third pot. I think in theory, double check is probably fine. In practice against population, whether like people are going to reopen with their bluffs enough is a yeah. I think that's a bit of a dubious assumption. So maybe the line is just better played as small bet here. I think on the river, when they have sets, they always reopen. I think I prefer putting this in the check line. I think it's close. I'd like to have more time to think about it. I think this is mainly a give up line, so when villain just has like, so I think they should reopen for value like quite wide, and if they have some bluffs, they will go for it. We do get him to go for it. Yeah, I think that spot's close. It's like, I mean, obviously we're very happy when we get the bluff from 5 high, right? Like we're absolutely ecstatic with the way that the hand played out for us that time. Um, but I do think it is close because I think what we're weighing up there is how often they just have like um a top pair or a two pair holding or something that may decide to hero, given that we have like ace king and ace queen that missed. That decide to hero and then don't reopen on the river versus his bluffs, which like he doesn't actually have that many just like random pure air combos, right? Like I don't think he has like yes, he found a 5-4 suited, but I don't think he has an abundance of those like random air. And so, if he's weighted more towards just like marginal showdown, then maybe we should be doing the betting ourselves. And there's also an assumption in there, like in the check line, we are assuming that villain will always reopen like sets, which like I think should be true in theory. But in practice, you're gonna get some people that knit up and just like check back pocket nines there, like a set of nines, and then you're really sad. We will throw back the king jack. And first this player, I think we'll start with big bets here with the queen jack suited. We can certainly just play big bets as our strategy here. I think it makes quite a nice candidate hand to do it with. Get a quick call. Okay, the 6 of hearts on the turn is not an amazing card. I imagine our check frequency is going to be much higher. Just have to fold versus the jam. Our check frequency is going to be quite high. We also are going to get check jammed on in this line, so I don't think I like betting this hand particularly often. Slash, I think it could just be a pure check. It also, like, we then get to always see a river. Our queen and jack are often live outs as well. yeah, I think I just like putting this in the check line. And we're against a, potentially volatile recreational again, so like maybe we see the jam more often than we should. It's nice to be getting there. I think if you watched my end of year recap, certainly the last 6 months of the year have not been hitting hearts on the river. So maybe it's a new year, new they've ignitions redrawn the equity of who's gonna be rivering flushes. Um, and maybe we've come up lucky. I think only play here is gem. I guess sometimes we run into the ace high or king high flush, but like that's a very marginal consideration. We can get paid by a set, we can get paid by a straight. Yeah, gonna be all in. We do get the fold. I think also a spot where people can just choose to hero us there, right? Like we can just be turning ace king with the ace of hearts into a bluff there. So there's like some very credible bluff candidates that we have, and so when villain actually has something there, we can get called off pretty light there. Kind of a spot where we just like we rivet a good enough hand that we just have to be all in and let them make the decision as to whether they want a hero or not. Sixes again versus the three big blinds, I think just fold. I think it's just a fold in theory. Anyway. I think at the 2K table we should probably sit out as well. Um, the short stack that's on our right is probably just a reg that's playing a short stack strategy. Like they're not making egregious errors or anything. And the ace five suited here, we can three bet or call. I think with the extra player in there. Our three bet frequency has been pretty low. Not that sorry, actually, I'm gonna take that immediately back. Both of these players are new to the table, so they have no idea what my three bet frequency is. So we can't even like leverage any of like we've been tied at the table, so therefore we get to three bet this. Like I think it can go either way, but I'm just gonna call. Take a slightly lower variance route. As played, just gonna be check folding. If to go back to that train of thought here, if I was playing with like this guy had opened and this guy had flattered, obviously like from these positions where they've been at the table and they've seen sort of that I've been playing pretty tight, I think would then just go to pure three bet the hand. You can also just pure three bet the hand if you want to as well. I think we had a recreational join this table and then immediately leave, so we'll just sit out. Look for another spot. You can see my computer's struggling a little bit with the tables and OBS, but anyway, is what it is. Open up the tens. Like we just got dealt into the same table, but now we're in the big blind, so we will sit out at the end of the orbit. Open up the ace 10 suited. And just folding the jack 2. Yeah, a bit of an interesting session. We ran into some spots that just weren't going our way, but then made the nuts at a 2K table and got a guy to bluff into us, which kind of swings it into a very winning session, but It doesn't necessarily feel that way, right? Because it's just the one hand that you won. Um, and the rest of it was kind of us just getting beaten up in a few spots. But anyway, we'll take the win. Queen 8-6 again, probably playing big bets and checks, and pocket tens is going to play a very natural check here. Into then a recreational who looks relatively like aggressive. It's going to be a very easy like call turn, call river spot for us. I expect this to just be overbluffed by a recreational. And the ace 5-9. Yep, ace 2 is going to want to bet small sometimes, but also going to be doing a lot of checking. Now we're going to polarize. Just call turn here, and very easy call river. I think we get to do this. We get to. Hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we get to start going nuts here. Yeah, and once we face check, I think it's a very easy value bet. Again, it's like the recreational who trapped us with the trip tens. It's going to be really annoying when we just see like queen jack that didn't go for two straights here, but I think this is a very easy value bet. Uh, Interesting. Very interesting. What are you doing? After I polarize. So, like to be clear here, we're obviously between call and raise. Kind of tough to get called by worse. I guess it's good. But I also want to be betting. I am just going to raise, and I'll fold to jam. Nice. It was very close because like if we jam there, it feels very thin after he's chosen to donk river. Like to be clear, I think if he just checked river, I probably jam as my strategy. Um, but then once he chooses to lead, like then all of a sudden he's much more weighted to actually just having some like quite strong hands, right? And less likely to just have a random bluff catcher that we're just looking to get a hero call from. Wow, he has ace 8 off. Kind of absurd. That's like just a massive recreational. Um, yeah, kind of, kind of absurd. Um, but and against that player, when he snap calls the 40 big blinds, like maybe we should still have just jammed. But we have no, we don't have the. Oh, and I need to not be sitting out. Um, we don't have any insight that he's a massive recreational before the hand, right? Like there's nothing to twig that for us. So, um, yeah, I think has played. I think has played the river raise is like quite close against most players. It's like a slam dunk river raise against this specific opponent if we'd known. But yeah, donking half pot after I've just polarized to basically say I either have the nuts or nothing seems a bit suspicious to me. A bit suspicious. Yeah, but basically said like I think I was mainly looking to get called by, like a 9-7, right? Like that's just rivered two pair. Like the hands that are being triggered to donk there are probably hands that have riveted it, and so it's like A7 and ace sorry, A7 and like 9-7 and 5-7 are like the three kind of candidate hands that I was thinking about. Obviously A7 beats us, which is the problem of with like jamming, right? Like sometimes he's just riveted a better two pair. Which is why I didn't go for jam. And I figured that if I went for jam, 9-7 and 5-7 might just fold. I don't think that's the case against this player. Like after we saw him just snap call ace 8. But if we're assuming that 9-7-5-7 fold versus jam and ace-7 always calls, then it's kind of a disaster for us to jam. Yeah, we'll be absolutely ISO raising the ace-queen here versus the recreational. We'll go to 10 big, slightly bigger than I would normally, but just expecting not to get many folds here. It's a little bit dicey when we face a 4-bet. Like, we probably just have to fold, which sucks, but yeah. Gonna be fine to play a elevated pot in position versus recreational. Okay, so we have a couple of data points, right? Like, we know this guy is going to be a station, so I don't like the line of like triple barreling off and trying to get this guy to fold pocket eights by the river, right? So I think we actually just prefer this line in the showdown value line of like we just say, okay, you've got too much, queen 10 offsuit here sometimes that you shouldn't have, and so we can just bluff catch you on turns and rivers. And sometimes just like make a better hand on the turn and river as well. And also expect the guy to be volatile and just like start randomly stabbing so we can hero call more often. But also that he will like raise us at a frequency on the flop, which we don't really want to face. Because our hand is just like our hand is too pretty to bet flop and face raise and then have to fold. Like we really don't like doing that. So yeah, just a very clear call versus these not even third pot. And we see a quick check. Again, we can call or raise, both are fine there. And fold the 10-2. Again, I don't expect our fold equity to be good enough here. Like a jack is never folding. It's like, and was pocket eights really betting the turn? Like maybe, but again, I don't actually perceive our fold equity to be that great. And I think we do just have enough showdown here. So I think we just check and probably lose like quite often, but that's fine. Okay, so he does just have pocket eights. Yeah, again, I don't expect pocket eights to fold river. Which means, of course, we just like when we have a rivered king, we just value bet big, and just expect that hand to always call, and we just never bluff. So clearly a very like exploit line, right? The king 10 versus donk for pots on the turn and then a call. I think we just need to fold. We don't have enough. Don't have enough going on here. Like, yes, a jack gives us a straight, but then also we lose to ace king, which is like non-zero from the under the gun player. I mean, should he be calling pot? Probably not, but he's probably a recreational as well, just judging off his open size, and we kind of are just like never winning with just our 10. Interesting, we see like a reg opening 3.5 big blinds. Which is certainly a non-standard open. Yep, dude just has it straight, sure. Hold the 3-2. We can make a like we can just make a tag here. That's pot when he has it, and particularly if we later on think that he's a recreational player, the bet spot when he has it as a tag will be very useful, because they will just bet pot when they have it, and they won't find the bluffs. And also going to have a look at what the player hero called him down with. With king queen, pretty whatever. Pretty whatever. Like he should probably fold. Like I don't think the line. I'm not sure what river bet size he faced, but I think it must have been big. Just judging off how much his stack went down. I think he should probably fold. I don't expect the line from the big blind there to be overbluffed. 5-4-6 top right. We're going to be doing a lot of checking. King queen is it just fits very nicely into the checking line. This is not our board at all. Players are supposed to be donking into us, and in practice they won't be. which means that their range actually when they check is stronger than it should be. 10 on the turn. I think we can. I think this is close now. Like our hand obviously carries some showdown value, but we also have a very realistic prospect of getting ace high to fold. So I think I like b75 here. I think I like b75 here after we face the double check. Like it's very much weighted towards being weak hands. And then I think I like pure give up here on river. Interesting. We faced the 3-bet and the cold 4, both from very tight players. This just makes our decision to fold very easy. Honestly, Jacks versus this player, I was like, I was gonna call, but was hating life, and the guy's been super tight. Like, he clearly just has the nuts here a lot of the time. Yeah, I don't think we want to bluff the king queen here. Yeah, so clearly just did have the nuts. Interesting to see like a cold 4-bet fold. Sizing was also like, oh well, I guess they are playing deeper, so like he is supposed to 4-bet slightly larger. Okay, we might look to wrap up the session very shortly. Yeah, a bit of an interesting session. I think we have found some pretty good tables, but not necessarily found the spots. Except for the one hand with the ace king, which worked out in our favor. But anyway, another live play session wrapped up. If you enjoyed the content, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Drop me a comment if you have any questions about any of the hands. Happy to sort of chat some theory in the comments below. But otherwise, I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.